Oh, you want to play psycho killer? Can I be the helpless victim?
Cross your eyes and scream, man. Scream for your life.
Welcome, Scream Queens, Kings, and Things. Whether you are screaming at movies or the real life stuff, I'm your host, Janecka Olen. This is my 50th episode, and I have a very special guest where we talk about the scariest movie of all time, because this is like a double feature this week for Halloween. So this intro is going to be a lot shorter if you're new here. Each episode will have an intro, brief synopsis. Actually, I'm cutting out the synopsis for this one. Each episode has an intro, normally a brief synopsis, but since I have a double feature, an analysis of the film with the true horrors sprinkled in. Spoiler alert. I've made it my job to spoil the shit out of this movie. Today, I will be covering the 1973 The Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin, written by William Peter Blatty, starring Eden Burstyn, Max von Sydow, and Linda Blair. The estimated budget was $11 million, and the estimated gross is $430 million. Tagline: what an excellent day for an exorcism. Some quick trivia before we start. When Reagan projectile vomits on Father Karras, the vomit was intended to hit Jason Miller in his chest, but the plastic tubing misfired, hitting him in the face. His reaction of shock and disgust while wiping away the vomit was genuine. On the first day of rehearsing the exorcism sequence, Linda Blair's delivery of her foul-mouthed dialogue was so disturbing that Max von Sydow actually forgot his lines. Due to death threats against Linda Blair from religious zealots who believed the film glorified Satan, Warner Brothers had bodyguards protecting her for 6 months after the release of this film. Pretty scary for a child to go through that. Scarier than even the movie. According to Linda Blair, director William Friedkin would warn her before he'd fire a gun on set so that she wouldn't be startled like the others. Surprise! Firing a gun now. While filming the crucifix scene, Linda Blair simply had to put a crucifix and a sponge between her legs that was filled with fake blood. The shots of the crotch area were filmed with Eileen Dietz.
Is there someone inside you?
Sometimes.
Who is it?
I don't know.
Is it Captain Howdy? You ever heard of exorcism?
How do you go about getting an exorcism?
I beg your pardon? I'm Damien Karras. I'd like to help you. Where's Reagan?
In here with us.
I believe we should begin.
All right, so this is going to be my Halloween special episode. And we are talking about The Exorcist, which you are an expert on.
Well, I'm as close to an expert, I think, as a person can get.
I will take it.
The reality of my life is that I watched The Exorcist way, way, way too soon. I watched it way too soon in my development. I think I was 8 or 9. No. This is after all the psychic stuff was happening in my life. I was probably 10. And I watched this movie that petrified me to the point where I did nothing after that but study it. And now, years later, after having studied it the way I have, I now look at that movie as one of my favorite movies, The Exorcist, the original 73 Exorcist. And I view it as a movie about hope.
Okay.
That's how much I've studied it. I play it every time I'm sad.
Mm-hmm.
Just to remind me that things can be a lot worse. Things can be a lot worse. And in the end, you might come out with your scars, but you'll come out better. And I think, honestly, that movie is about as bad as it can get. Like, if you're a parent, that's about as bad as the situation can get. Even in the original, where she did not walk backward down the stairs spitting blood out of her mouth, it was still terrifying what happened in the 73 original. But, yeah, now I look at that and I think, what a message of hope. Nothing I've ever gone through is quite that bad. Close, but not that bad.
When I was doing a little bit more research into it, it was kind of about him losing faith and then finding his way back to faith.
You mean Father Karras?
Yeah, Father
Yeah,
Karras,
Father
yes.
Yeah, of course, we all know it's loosely based on a true story that happened way back in the day with a young boy who had ties through an aunt who was using a Ouija board or something to that effect. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened, as a matter of fact. Anyway, Father Karras is this side plot of a priest who's lost his way. His mother's in bad shape. He's in bad shape. He feels unfit for not only his position as a priest, but he feels unfit to be serving people, period. He's kind of lost it, down and out. And that's where he was. And this I feel was his ultimate path. His ultimate path was to prove that not only was he the man for the job, that he sacrificed himself so that this little girl could be at peace, effectively unaliving himself so that the demon died with him, like the pigs in the Bible, as they were cast into swine, which is interesting also because in the movie, you'll hear the demon refer to her as his sow, as this pig. In the book, the original book that was done, this talk is a lot more intense, more intense. So for this demon to then jump to its death reminds me a lot of that parable from the Bible where the demons were originally cast out. So it was really interesting to me. Also another sign of sacrifice, what I would do to my fellow man, what I would give to my fellow man. I'd give my life to make sure that you were better. Crazy thought, but at the end of the day, what a loving gift that this man gave to this little girl who had already been through so much.
Yeah. I saw it like as his redemption in a way.
Yeah.
He had a lot of guilt, especially over his mother.
Yes. Yeah.
Because he had left her, she died on her own. And so that was used against him a lot. I very much felt for his character. He was like an odd priest, right? They make a comment about how he looks like a boxer.
Very intense eyes, right? Yeah.
He's a very attractive priest.
You know what? When they're that age, most of them are, I think. Most of them are at that age. And again, I didn't grow up Catholic. But I do. There's something very handsome and loving about a priest, I think. Not that I get all Blanche Devereaux about it, but it is a handsome uniform.
Yeah, there's a whole category for that.
I don't know. No. I myself, I never thought I'd ever do work like that. I never thought I'd do work. I thought I would do blessings. I thought I'd do blessings because how sweet and precious is that? I've gone through 2 or 3 bottles of holy water I went through 1 whole bottle last night, but I've gone through 3 total bottles since 2025. That's outrageous. Outrageous. I've never used that much holy water ever. But just a sign of the times. But yeah, like Father Karras, I had no idea I was going to ever end up in that situation. I had no idea, but here we are.
Yeah, he was saying like he's not qualified to do it. He didn't want to do it. I can't remember. Why did he end up doing it?
Well, he presented it to the diocese, right? And he's the one who had records on the case. He's the one that has a psychological. There was supposed to be a psychiatrist that's in the room when you do an exorcism. If it's Vatican approved, there's usually some kind of doctors.
And he was the doctor. Yeah.
He was the doctor. And they actually asked him who would do this. And he said that he would rather be the one that did it. So I think it's at that point he was offering himself up to say, I'm going to try to figure this out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so heavy. Especially you were talking about when you first saw this movie. I mean, I was very young when I first saw it. I don't even know. I was definitely under 10. And it scared the shit out of me. I think the scariest parts for me was like the writing on her stomach whenever they lift up her shirt. Like for some reason that stuck with me and just like freaked me out. And the show of power or lack of show of power stuck with me as well.
For example, like when the demon refused to open the drawer again, or
yeah, there was something about that just like stuck with me. The fact that this demon could do all these things, had the power to free itself, but then stayed in that state, was like toying with them.
Yeah, the entire time. The entire time. That keep going. What was the other thing you found was the scariest? I'm making a list because I want to go back and talk to you about each one of these points.
Oh, like there are some shocking things, about what happens, but those things didn't really scare me. Like her jabbing herself with a crucifix. Like
Oh,
that's shocking, but it didn't scare me. It was just like, oh, that's fucked up.
oh, it was really messed up. Yeah.
Yeah. When his mom's voice comes out too,
Father
that,
Karras.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was definitely a part that stuck with me. And also the recording of that he takes.
Yes. Yes. Go on. I'm sorry to
And
interrupt. Go ahead.
then, well, he takes the recording and he thinks that it might be a different language and they play it back and they're like, no, this is English backwards. And it was like, that definitely stuck with me as well. And I was like, what is it doing? Like, this is so weird. Like, why would you do that?
So, can we talk about all these points? Because it's so good.
Yeah, yeah,
The markings on the skin is one of the things that can happen. It doesn't happen every time, but it's
yeah.
very, very possible that a person can develop lesions, whelps, or can spell out messages. I think someone had a crucifix, an inverted crucifix. Ed and Lorraine Warren talk about their exorcism of that man in France, and the one that later unalived himself, the farmer that had been through so much.
Mhm.
That the one that cried blood. Crying blood is a thing. There's one. There's a really filthy thing I shouldn't probably say. Well, let me clean it up. There's a lady in Rome that is reported to cough up body fluids. Let me say it that way. Body fluids that are by the handful. She coughs up, yeah, body fluids that a woman should not be carrying in this amount of. I mean, it's a lot of body fluid. You see what I'm saying? And they have to remove it in empty buckets. Since she started her exorcisms, there's another lady who coughs up nails. Now, I've never seen that in my journeys. I've never seen that, but it's
Mhm.
written as a part of record. So these things that the body does in these times is terrifying.
Mhm.
I have seen contortions that I didn't think a person could be able to like move properly afterward. I have seen that, but I've never seen anything written on anybody. The power that it shows, the power you were talking about is one of the things that scares me the most. But it's also the fact that it already knew what it was there to do, and it was going to make it happen in this chain of events. Because in the very beginning, Father Marin is on a pilgrimage in northern Iraq. He
Mhm.
sees Pazuzu, the demon, and he knows this ancient enemy is coming for me. So he goes on a
Mhm.
retreat to Woodstock. This is why in the backward tape you were talking about, when you played it forward, she screams, Marin, Marin. That's why before any of the priest even gets in the room, she knows he's in the room, and it sounds like a throttled cow when she screams, Marin,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
demon does this. Terrifying, terrifying. It gives me goosebumps. That demon worked its way through everybody's life in order to get to Marin. But it affected everybody along the way, one way or the other. Poor Karras and his mom. That's a sad situation. What a dark, depressing event that is. I don't think actually that you would be allowed to go in after something like that. Whoever's the main person in charge would probably reinstate you with somebody else. If your mother died before an exorcism, I don't think you'd participate. Not really. So
Yeah.
that crucifix scene is something that brings me into something else you were talking about. You were talking about how the voices scared you. She would come up with Mother Karras, and she would say, Demi, why have you done this to me, Demi, right? That's terrifying in
Mhm.
the movie, too. If you've not heard the original author read it on Audible, you've not lived. Hearing the original author read these words in his voice, which is so raspy, and it's unsettling. I'm halfway through it right now. I've got about 3 hours left. Because we're close to
Okay.
Halloween. I've been at it since October,
Yeah.
right?
I did
Anyway,
purchase it on Audible and I have been listening to it as I
isn't he,
clean.
isn't he great? He's
He
such a great
is.
narrator.
I haven't gotten that far though. I think I still have I still have a while.
Well, you keep going. It is worth it. When you get to the last 3 hours, it gets just crazy. And there's so much more in the book. Like, I have to turn the book off. Even I have to step back and say, okay, this is just the worst as it can get. But immediately I find myself cleaning. I find myself living right. I find myself doing better. So the part about there's this massive thing that I don't know anybody else is really talking about. But there's a small subculture, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I was told correctly by a client, There is a class you can take at UCLA in film where they teach a class about The Exorcist, where they are discussing the fact that one of the voices Reagan produces is of Bert, the mother's director. The mother's director who was an alcoholic. Well, he was a dangerous man to himself and others, right? A foolish Bert.
Mm-hmm.
They're suggesting that he had done something very inappropriate to Reagan. And then that's why Reagan snapped his head and put him out the window, the first murder, right? If you take it from the context that this is what the Catholics say, the root of her guilt and her shame, and she's been opening herself up to these entities by playing the Ouija board, it tracks by their theory. If you take it to a psychological thing and you say, she was never possessed at all, this child snapped, and this child was doing this, this, and this. However you want to explain the supernatural stuff, that theory still tracks. However, the ritual of exorcism is a very profound, repeated to exhaustion, daily ritual. It's not a one and done. Some people, there's one old lady who's 80 years old in Rome, gets them done every 6 weeks. Well, she's still alive. I doubt she's still alive. But if she is, she's kicking. It takes about 6 men to hold her down, by the way. And she's in her 80s. But anyway, they're saying that all these things that she did was all part of this psychological snap that she did. And this is why she says, do you know what she did? Your daughter, you know? It's because he was trying to do something with her and there had been something inappropriate going on. This is why she asks the mother in bed, are you going to marry Mr. Dennings? He had already been in the home and he had already had interactions with the child. They believe that this was a story of mental health misdiagnosed as possession is what they're suggesting. I still think if you follow the movie through to the end, the exorcism works, and it does. I've seen same results in ayahuasca done in Peruvian jungles. Am I a dork? Am I boring you? Don't let me bore you.
No, you're not boring me.
Yeah, that's what Kristen Stewart said. She said I was her sweet-hearted, kind dork or something like that. And I thought, you called everybody else queens and like fire breathers, and I get sweethearted dork, whatever. Anyway, I digress. So, anyway, I think even if you want to follow that route, there's still some kind of a therapy that goes through. These individuals can go through that breaks them free from the attachment of that guilt, that shame. Sometimes it's years worth of therapy. Sometimes it's therapy and medications. These things concurrent with one another. Or there is sometimes when these things happen, priests have been called in and it has actually been so impactful that it psychologically rips them. That's the idea, I think, behind what they're trying to say in some of these subcultures about, like, can we look at the movie in a way that says maybe there was something else was really, really wrong. Her parents were divorced before the age of puberty. That throws off her foundations and structures in life. A lot to consider in that movie and that book.
Well, with Reagan also kind of talking about like the father and the divorce, and, you know, he's an absent father. He doesn't even call her on her birthday.
Yeah.
And the mom is like on the phone calling. She's upset for Reagan. And as someone who had like a deadbeat baby's daddy, I felt for her in that moment of like, there are so many things you can't control. And that's one of those things you can't control, what the other person's going to do. And Captain Howdy that Reagan was talking to, there's something about, I can't remember what the dad's name was, but there was a connection to Captain Howdy and the father.
Really? Chris McNeil's husband?
Yeah.
That tracks in a way that's logical and rational, doesn't it? Like, that kind of tracks a little bit. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'd never considered it.
Oh, yeah, no. I can't remember exactly like what his name was, but I think it was it Howard? Yeah.
Howard McNeil?
Yeah, because then Howdy Howard, like they're just so similar, you know?
I'm going to look that up, and then when this episode posts, I'm going to be like all up in the comments with the answer.
I mean, I think in the movie, to me, I thought she was really possessed, but I thought that the demon was very smart and was able to play off of all these things. So it was able to trick you and, you know, make you second guess, is this just this child acting out? Or is there really a possession? But, you know, the demon would be aware of all the different struggles that this child has faced, that the mom has faced. It obviously knew a lot. So it could play off of all that. So I thought she was really possessed in the movie. I did not think this was a little girl that was just trying to get attention, especially in the beginning of the movie. Like, she was a very happy child. They go out to a fancy, or they don't do it in the, actually, they don't do it in the movie, but in
They
the
do it in the
book.
book. They go out for
Yeah.
for dinner. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, they have a very close relationship. I think it's more obvious in the book than in the movie, but the mom almost looks like an absent mother in the movie. It's because they take out so much of the beginning and they
Well,
don't develop their relationship as much.
they don't develop the relationship as much as they leave out a fair amount of like Reagan losing this dress in the book. In the book, Reagan loses this dress that was just right there. It shows sort of those early stages of possession called manifestation and infestation, where they infest the person's life and the week, and they kind of separate people off, and then they select who they're going to target, right? And that's where you get like the oppression manifestation. So all those different steps as presented by the Warrens, which what was that worth? We don't know, but it gave us an idea of what to look for, and it's pretty accurate. I think it's pretty spot on. But anyway, you're missing out a lot of that in the book because they even talk about the fact that she gets bad at math. They talk about the fact that she starts lying. They start talking about the character changes in a way that the movie doesn't really show you the grand scope of what Chris, the mom, and Rags, what Chris and Reagan, I call her Rags because that's what they call her in the book, what Reagan and Chris were going through. Nobody, you can't really see that in the book, I don't think. I mean, in the movie, not the way you do in the book. It's worth the buy. It's totally, if you got unused Audible credits, The Exorcist, it's great.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
It's very much worth it. I want to own the physical copy though, because the book just looks so awesome.
Doesn't it?
Like the cover.
I own the original script, and it's autographed by Eileen Dietz, friend of mine. I pointed to the shelf because their sets are booked. She once autographed a can of split pea soup for me because it's still used in the movie. But anyway, I couldn't really have it, and I couldn't really have it in the house. I had to. There are 3 books that exist in what we call my vault. It's a storage unit. I've got 2, but I'm not sure which one has it. It's the script, basically the Encyclopedia of Demons, and the Dictionary of Demonic Activity, or the Dictionary of Demonic Entities, something like that. I couldn't sleep with them in the house. So I bound them in white linen, blessed them with my good intent that I would only pull them out in the event that I needed to reference, and stowed it away in a trunk, somewhere in a trunk. But anyway, the book to me is just outrageous. And for somebody to come up with this in the 70s is next level. But he himself said, the author, Blatty, right? William Peter Blatty, he said, I wanted to make it as ugly as it could possibly get. And I thought that was pretty ugly. And I'm like, that's the definition of ugly, as a mom to go through that. But anyway, I see that. One of the relationships that really interested me the most is that between the demon and everybody she encountered, she had a plan for her. She had a plan for every person. For Willie and Carl, the butler and the maid, there's a whole backstory between them and their drug addict daughter that Carl's told Willie is dead. You don't get that until you get the book. It screws that up and tells Willie, oh, your daughter's alive, Willie. She's in a crack den, and, tells Willie all these things. And Willie's looking at Carl like, thought you told me our daughter was dead. To the point where she's got into the life of the assistant Shen, who was practicing Nichiren Buddhism, by the way, chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which I use in my everyday life and have for 13 years. Greatly beneficial. I don't belong to any sects or any kind of organizations, mind you. I practice by myself. But it is one of the things I use. So I kind of get shook whenever they bring that up, too, in the book. I'm like, oh, Sharon, why couldn't you have been like Hare Krishna or something like that? It just creeps me out that they're using that as the example. But for Father Karras, the day he meets her, he says, I'm a friend of your mother's. I'm Father Karras. And she says, well, undo these straps. It's one of my favorite lines in the whole movie. Well, then maybe you could undo these straps. Terrifies the shit out of me. I get so freaked out. But he says, would you enjoy an exorcism? And she said, intensely. And he said, wouldn't that drive you out? And she said, it would bring us together. And he said, you and Reagan. And she said, you and us. And who is it she grabs just before he throws himself out the window? That demon was determined to take Karis. That demon was determined to take Marin out, which it did. Marin dies of a heart attack right there as she's giggling and laughing. And that iconic.
Oh, God. That laugh is so creepy.
So creepy, but iconic. And that she was going to take Karis to hell with her. Thank God his mate was there, the other priest who did a confession for him at the foot of the stairs in the movie. I thought that was brilliant.
Something I found very interesting is that 2 of the priests in the film were real priests and not actors. Father William O'Malley, who played Father Dyer, and Father Thomas Birmingham, whom some interpreted as having played himself. They also served as the film's technical advisors alongside Father John Nicola. I thought that was pretty crazy that they agreed to be on a film like this, even because you would think that it's sacrilegious.
Well, not really. If you take it in the context of like, this is how bad it can get, and there is a way out, whatever way to the light that might be. Their way was Catholicism. Let's show the way of Catholicism, that this is the way out in Catholicism. I don't want to stress that enough, because I think in the research I did for this interview, the level of how many variations of exorcisms there are is immense. It's almost as many people in the world as how you can clear them. But anyway, from the very beginning, William Peter Blatty started working with priests when he started writing the book. And then when it went into production, they did include priests in the production of it. They also included priests to be beside Mercedes McCambridge, who was the voice of the demon. Mercedes, who had, I don't know if you've ever looked her up, but boy, you talk about a suffering life. Sis suffered. It was horrific. We're talking about hostage situations, abuses, alcoholism. So she said, in order to do the voice of this demon, I'm going to fall off the wagon and I want my priest with me. So she brought her priest in.
I actually did read that she was an alcoholic and she started drinking again for this role.
Smoking cigarettes, drinking raw eggs, and drinking whiskey, bourbon.
Yeah. That's the raw eggs really makes me, I don't know, that gets me. That's so gross.
That's gross. But she's right. It does build up incredible phlegm. Like vocally, it builds up that phlegm. I think that the thing that scares me the most, and I don't know if you've ever heard it, but there's a particular piece of her performance that they used in loops of her groaning and grunting. And it's on YouTube. If you can find the Mercedes McCambridge just audio, they kind of stack it and play it in a way where it's like, you can hear the dual tones inside of her voice, because Mercedes produced higher and lower tones at the same time, say an alto and a baritone concurrent at the same, which is something you only find in Buddhist monks or people who are mantra meditations. But they also play it in a way that, like, part of her performance was just, I think, playing out traumas of her past. Play that audio and tell me you don't hear it. It's a little concerning.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to produce all of the crazy sounds and the things that she was saying were so out there and very trauma-filled. It would make sense that she had a very dark past that she could tap into to do that.
Yeah. And the way it happened, to my understanding, is that she asked to be strapped down.
Oh, wow.
And again, this is just a voice actor. She asked to be strapped down. And there's, to my knowledge, Friedkin, who's the director, did not want her to be strapped down, nor does I think he ever said that she was. He said, we certainly didn't ask her to go off the wagon. Glad she did. We certainly didn't ask her to swallow raw eggs, but isn't it a great sound? Like, you could tell these people had something that was very dark happening with her, and they were just going to allow it for the sake of art, is what I think was kind of happening.
Yeah.
But, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the voiceover work done in that movie is top-notch.
It's so disturbing.
Have you heard Linda Blair doing it? Like the video, have you watched the video of her? Because Linda said these lines and then they dubbed over with Mercedes. Have you watched it?
No, I haven't.
She says them just like a little girl would, you know?
Hmm.
And she's just much too powerful to display Karis. And like it was a little girl.
Yeah.
And so they said they had spiritual advisors and therapists on staff even for her in those moments.
One thing that I thought was very cute, there was like when she was getting her makeup done, the makeup artist asked her, like, how do you feel saying all these things? Because she was like cursing a bunch, and here it is. So the makeup artist, Dick Smith, once asked Linda Blair during the filming how she felt having to swear for the film. And she replied, "It's not me, it's Reagan." I thought that was cute.
They said that they tried really, really hard to keep her as innocent as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Years later, she meets up with Rick James, and you got to Google how that turned out. But that's not even a joke. It's a pretty twisted situation. I want to kind of talk just real quickly about the things that I have learned about exorcism. Real quick, if I can. Do you mind? Well,
no.
Also, wait, before we do, there's a lot about that movie that was janky from the jump. People did die. There was a small fire. Lots of stuff happened around that movie that was just disaster after disaster after disaster.
Yeah, I have a whole list of accidents that happened. So
Do you?
like the production was delayed for 6 weeks after a mysterious fire suddenly burned down the original set, except for Reagan's bedroom, which was on a different floor. So
okay.
although some believe the cause was a pigeon flying into a circuit box, many of the cast and crew were very distressed. Jason Miller's 5-year-old son, Jordan, who was his youngest at the time, was struck by a motorcycle on the beach and was in critical condition for 10 days during filming. Miller had to perform the emotional scenes with his mother in the hospital, while Father Thomas Birmingham, who also appears in the film, kept vigil by his son's side in the hospital himself throughout those 10 days. So there was a lot of tragedy. There was also director Fredkin eventually asked technical advisor Thomas Birmingham to exorcise the set. He refused, saying an exorcism might increase anxiety. Father Birmingham wound up visiting the set and giving blessings and talking to reassure the cast and crew. Because I guess he was just like afraid it would scare them more to do an exorcism.
Yeah. That's kind of the situation I was in last night, which was one of those things like, do you go back to the car and then say, hey, we kicked all these things out? You know, how do you go back and talk to a family that's afraid to go back into the house? And you just simply say, your house is clear. You know, you put one of those poltergeist moments, you say your house is clean, don't that, leave it at that.
Yeah.
You got to take people's mental state into consideration. You really got to. All right, so here's something I found out. Because you and I decided we were going to do this. And I was like, you know what? I want to do more than just offer what the movie was like, what the movie was about, and what the movie did for me. So I did some work understanding exorcisms, period. And I found it to be such an unbelievably mind-opening experience. Now, I've been doing blessings and things for a hot minute. I mean, a hot minute. It's 10 years plus of doing it professionally. And I've been at it since I was 8 years old, 33 years of being in the spirit world and spirit business. You know, people call me when things go wrong. And I show up to the house and I help get rid of it. First, I have to determine if it's there or not. That's where the paranormal investigator comes in. Sitting and having time to really go through exorcism and the rabbit hole that I did, I discovered that there was this outrageously simple explanation of it, that it did not have to be specifically a white-haired priest and an unnamed demon. That really the idea of exorcism is to detach ourselves from anything that we have given authority to. This could be a toxic lover. It could be an absent father. It could be guilt and shame that we have because of something that happened to us. It could be money. It could be drugs. It could be, I don't know how many things I'm allowed to say. I don't want to throw you out the alcohol. There's a lot of things we can be attached to. And at the end of the day, these are just rituals, and there's so many across all different cultures since the dawn of man, of expulsion, of disconnecting from these things and re-establishing self-sovereignty. I wanted to say how beautiful I found it that It's as simple as finding your own ritual to reestablish self-spiritual sovereignty, to reestablish self-highest good, to reestablish self, and put in there things like people say self-love is a ritual. Maybe we should make it a ritual.
Yeah.
You know, and then this whole thing of like educating yourself to the highest good, maybe that needs to be a ritual too. Maybe we all need a little faith check. You know, like where are we in faith in ourselves? Where are we in faith in our hearts? Where's our spirit? And if you find that you can't get a ritual for it, I'm looking at nearly every different Bible and spiritual text. I have them all because I wanted to go on a spiritual journey if I was going to be in the spiritual world. And as soon as my parents kicked me out and I was 16, I bought all of them. But they all express some sort of thing that says, you know, you are your own temple. The greatest thing about the universe exists inside of you. We now know that we are built of stardust as well, which is pretty kind of magical. But deep down inside of us, there's this really great, wonderful, ruling divinity and spirit. And how do we get back there? And what does it take ritualistically to get you back there? And I hope if there's anything anybody takes away from this podcast tonight is, number one, go get the audiobook. It's worth it. And number two, reestablish yourself in the sovereignty and decency of who you are as a divine creature, of what that divine creature is.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've done a lot of research into just through horror movies because horror movies pull so heavily on religious symbolism and practices and exorcisms and all that kind of stuff. So like when it comes to Muslims, they have a certain ritual that they have for exorcisms. Everyone does it a little bit differently, but the end goal is always the same. And, you know, I think it's about intention over an actual like set of instructions.
Yes. Even if it's a set of instructions that you inherently pick for you, if it rings true for you, cherry pick. Find what works for you. Good point you made.
I grew up Jehovah's Witness. Like it was just a weird religion that was like so anti-everything, anti-establishment, and they didn't really, well, they believed in demons and things like that, but they wanted to shut you out of the world. And that's how they were able to protect themselves from those things. There was always like a weird duality in my home because Mom was extremely religious, but she also very much dabbled in the occultish type stuff too.
Oh, wow.
She was not one or the other. So
that hits home for me because like I was the kid going and opening up Sunday morning prayer for the whole church and then going home and being like, I have these visions. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I could read these cards and it's just like, I get these like dreams and I hear these voices. I get that. So, I mean, that's a hard road to walk. How was it growing up in that? Was it confusing at all for you?
It was very confusing, especially because I was told not to do these things, but then like also seeing them being done in front of me. And it's like, well, I'm not listening to anything you're saying then because you're contradicting yourself. And my stepdad was also a Baptist. Very much like no one agreed in the household on what was what. At this point in my life, I am an atheist, and I've been an atheist for a very long time. Like even as a kid, because there was so much push and pull between different beliefs and what was real and not real. I like very early on in my teenage years became a non-believer in religion. And I remember having a conversation with my mom where I was like, if this is what God is, like, I don't want to be part of it, even if it is true. He's a sexist asshole. Like, I will not be subservient because I'm a woman.
Right. Here's the thing. Do you mind if I speak to that?
Yeah.
Here's the thing I always encourage atheists. If you don't want to believe in a religion, cool. But please don't forget the love you were born with. Please don't forget the love that you were born with in terms of like, we all have a love inside of us at some point that would feed the hungry. We all have a love inside of us that would house the houseless. Don't forget that love. No matter where you go on your religious journey, don't forget that love. And I always find it to be the best piece of advice because it still says that although you don't see a governing force of it in terms of like the misogyny, the things like that that weren't great for you, there's still a way for you to prove your contributions to society through giving.
If anything, I felt like as soon as I kind of let go of religion in that way, I became more like, I'm not doing these things to help others because I think it's what I have to do. I'm doing it because I know it's the right thing to do it. I'm not doing it because I want to be let into, heaven.
You're not doing it for brownie points.
No.
Right, cool. I don't think one should. In fact, I think it negates the brownie point, don't you?
I think it does.
I think it negates the brownie point. But ain't it funny? Sorry, my holler came out. Hold on just a second. I put it back.
You're good.
You personally, I'm sorry for doing what I'm about to do next. But it's always very funny to me, especially here lately, those who are thumping their Bibles the hardest were the most evil of us all. And the hypocrisy of it drains my soul. But I remember the love I was born with, so I'm going to continue to fight you beautifully and peacefully. But at the end of the day, love will win. We always do. And when that pendulum swings back in our favor, as it always will, we'll sort through all that hypocrisy and that BS. We're going to make you, you'll see your karma. So having said all that, I just want to say to you, I'm glad you're on my side when it comes to still being a good person. Because some people, when they get in a dogmatic situation like that, they'll love one. A lot of people will go the very opposite end of that. They want to hurt and cause pain. And that's what makes me sad.
Yeah.
When these kids get pushed into that kind of either by an overzealous parent or the dogmatic principle, whatever pushes that kid, it breaks my heart. So I always say, never forget the love that you have. Never. And I just love that. So thanks for being on my side with that. I appreciate it.
Of course. I'm just like, I saw the hypocrisy of all of it. And I was like, well, I accept everyone. What are some of the other things? Okay. So there was very much like a commentary on the modern family and how that is destroying the home. Like Reagan's parents were divorced.
Right.
And she was a single mom. So like these were all framed as like very negative things that contributed to the fact that Reagan was possessed.
That goes back to what they were saying in that class that I was talking about earlier. Children, that was one of the things children of a broken home before the age of puberty or at the age of puberty had results like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in a lot of ways, Chris was doing the best she could. She had Willie, she had Carl, who were great stand-up people. She had Sharon, who was also Reagan's teacher. I think it's for me, I don't put it in that context at all. I look at it as it takes a village to raise a child. You need a whole village. It's not just a mommy and a daddy. It's everybody. We all got to come together and help these kids.
Even in that context of or that version, the wholesome family that's going to be the best for a kid, where it's just mom and dad. Really, they're just saying mom, because in that version, dad is working all the time and mom is the only one that's emotionally available to the children.
Sometimes even physically. Remember nuclear families, dad, like you just said, dad's gone working.
Yeah.
They sometimes didn't see dad till the weekend,
Yeah. That version doesn't work. People try to hold on to it.
But I do think the version that works best is that we have got to be responsible for each other, including each other's offspring.
Community.
Community. And just like I said, it takes a village. That to me was my big takeaway on that whole aspect.
So Pazuzu, there was something interesting about, there was a line in the movie, and the line says, evil against evil represents the ancient belief that the power of the demon Pazuzu could be used to fight against other demons, which I thought was very interesting. And Pazuzu is a figure from ancient Mesopotamia religion. So it was a wind demon associated with the southwest wind, famine, and disease in the late first millennium BCE sources. Paradoxically, Pazuzu amulets were sometimes used as protection against other demons. He was a complex figure in Mesopotamian magic. The visual iconography, like the wings, the bulging eyes, the hybrid animal features, is very distinctive for them. So the heads of statues in the opening prologue, where we get the archaeological dig in the ancient city of Hatra in 37 BC during the attack, which killed approximately 100,000. They cut off all the people's heads as well as the heads of the statues. So I thought that was interesting that that actually happened in that site where they
What a
filmed.
great place to film the movie, right?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things about going back to what you said about Pazuzu, there are a lot of demons that people used to fight off other demons. They exist. I had no idea that I had one with me for the longest time. I had no idea that it was even there. I did a psychic evaluation with a person in England, and they sent back some spiritual work that they did and what they felt I had with me. And they referred to one of these entities as a gargoyle type, a demonic looking figure that was meant to fight off other evils. Now, we do believe we picked up the voice of it years and years and years ago, but I had that sucker removed. And when I had it removed, I felt so much better. It's not that my life was bad, and it's not that I was causing bad. It was not that anything was going bad, but that entity was taking from me as much as it was keeping from me.
Yeah, like a parasite.
It was parasitic. And in the process, like, my life was fruitful. I prayed, I meditated, my life was fine. But when that cord was severed, I gained back a ton of energy and reclaimed my sovereignty. It was really, really great. But these things can happen, and even if it's just a bad memory you're tied to, or a triggering or a trauma that you had, people, we carry those with us, and they fight against other traumatic similar experiences. Those do. So exercising ourselves from these entities and these experiences and traumas is vital.
Yeah.
The best thing I ever did was get that psychic cleanse done from the guy in England. It was a wonderful experience. He didn't even tell me he was doing it. He just did it at night while I was asleep.
That's not creepy.
Not creepy at all. Not for me. Not for me in my life.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that it helped you. I'm glad that it worked for you.
Whatever works for anybody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it works, it works. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, like, therapy is kind of that, like, working through all the issues and making good with myself and making sure that I'm taking care of myself first.
As you should.
What are some things that we have not talked about that you, like, some insider information you have about this movie?
I think the insider information we kind of really went over. Some of the cool fun facts, though, is that what we sometimes hear as string orchestras in the background are not really string orchestras. They're the manipulated sounds of slaughterhouses, of hogs. The audio was taken of the slaughterhouses. They were being led into slaughter, recorded, and then it was stretched in the studio, and it produced this really wee sound. It's actually... That's
so creepy.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
There's a lot in there about different sounds and things like that. They were making that Mercedes McCambridge made by herself. Sounds that you'd think were just part was actually coming out of this lady's throat. And also they said one of the things that I found to be interesting was that they were saying that they really liked her for the voiceover of Pazuzu because her voice was androgynous. They wanted the voice to be androgynous. And I, as a kid, always thought that the voice of Ursula was the voice of the Exorcist. Because I thought from The Little Mermaid, she sounded so much like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, like, I was afraid to even watch Little Mermaid for a period of time because I was like, no, that's the demon from the movie. It was later on when YouTube was created that I saw the difference, you know, in the situation. That's a little side personal note. But the overall reality of it is, if you can suspend yourself from the religious aspect of it, or you can suspend yourself from the horror aspect of it, watch this story of a mother who's doing her best to get by and what she does and what a bunch of people do to save the life of a child who's going through the worst moments of its life.
Mm-hmm.
And then also stay for the end moment where she's scarred, but she comes out with a smile on her face and kisses her priest on the cheek. Out of compulsion. She couldn't help herself. She had to kiss him.
Mm-hmm.
Just watch for those things. Those are the really, that's the reason The Exorcist is a very important film.
Yeah.
Don't show it to 10-year-olds, though.
One other thing, they both got hurt. The actress that played the mom, I guess there was a harness whenever she like slaps, Reagan slaps her.
Yeah.
And she was pulled back, and she actually, I think, like one of her vertebrae.
Yeah, it's just slipped discs in her back because they had her in the vest and they pulled her back so hard she went against the floor, the cabinet, and the wall, and it pulled her straight back down, which jerked her spine out of alignment. So when she screams, "Oh God!" like that's Alan Bernstein saying out loud, "I'm hurt."
Yeah.
And Reagan's happened on the bed with the thumping and the whipping back and forth. She says, "Make him stop! Make him stop!" That's Linda Blair saying, "Make him stop."
Yeah, she was really being hurt.
She was such a good actress. How is anybody to know? Somebody should have gave a safe word, though, man. Somebody should have gave a safe word.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean that to be funny. I mean that honestly.
No,
when you do that kind of acting, man, she's so good. Like I wouldn't know the difference between her crying and her screaming in the movie. They used both, and I still can't tell the difference between what's
real versus acting. Yeah.
Having been in front of a camera like that many times, there are things I've done that I wasn't comfortable with that, man, I wish I could take that. And I think you got to take care of yourself when you're involved in stuff like that. I don't think I would ever be involved in a movie like The Exorcist, though.
I mean, the scariest movies to me are definitely religious films with possessions and stuff like that scare me. And like Paranormal Activity, those scare me. Yeah. But other horror movies don't scare me, but those scare me.
Well, I watched Paranormal Activity once by myself when it first came out on. This is back when Netflix was. You went to the thing and you could order movies online and they came to you.
Yeah.
It came to me in a little envelope and opened it up and I watched it by myself. It was like 8 o'clock when it started, 10 o'clock when it was over. I got in my car in a snowstorm and drove 90 miles to go get my boyfriend at the time. Drove him 90 miles back and made him stay with me for a week.
Yeah,
because I was terrified. How terrible.
No, that movie is scary.
It's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. This will come out on Halloween. It's my Halloween special.
I love it. I'll be there because I already follow your podcast. So I'm already subscribed.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for the conversation. I enjoyed it.
Of course. Yes. I always enjoy talking to you.
Me too. Thanks, Jill. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
That thing isn't my daughter.
It is he who commands you. The power of Christ compels you.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
My episode on Rocky Horror Picture Show is going to have all the updates there, so we're going to skip that here. I will say that I hope I see you at Spooky Empire. If you're in the Orlando area, I will have a booth, so you should definitely come and say hi to me. Maybe buy something from me. Next month, I am going to be covering all horror movies about Indigenous Native American culture. And a lot of those, just like with the trans community, are very imperfect. We have a lot of misrepresentation out there. I am hoping to connect with some people. Hopefully they're interested in talking to me about horror movies because I want to learn about Native American culture. I would like to learn about what is actually true in our media versus a whitewashed history. We just love to do in America. We like to pretend like things don't exist, and then we like to let them continue existing in that, in the interim. We need to get rid of that. We need to squish it. So this is my attempt at maybe educating a few people, educating myself for sure. And I think the best thing I've done and the most enjoyable thing I've done with this podcast is listen to the people who are being affected by legislation, the people who have been affected through generations. Horror is the lens in which I filter my life through. I'm probably meshing a bunch of different metaphors there, but it's fine. I can mesh as many things as I want my podcast to This is a weekly podcast. All the research, writing, and audio is done by yours truly. This is a one-woman show, and I am doing my very best. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. It really means a lot. If you're not following me on social media, what are you doing? Go over there. Follow me. You can find me on Instagram at Scream Queen Podcaster, Blue Sky at Scream Queen Podcast, TikTok at Scream Queen Podcast, and there's a link tree that will take you to my YouTube and Facebook page as well. Remember, it's always a great day for an exorcism, especially when you're exorcising some orange man out of office, or we can exercise a lot of things. And I've got a lot of things on my list to exercise, if you know what I mean. I think you do. I think that landed. It did. All right, bye.
Hehehe